When I came to Atlanta, one of the things that impressed me was that there were one or two places you could go and you could get a grasp for the entire scene. One of them was Pascal's, and every morning from about 6:30 till about 8, anybody who would anybody gathered at Pascal's, and you found out what was happening that day. At lunchtime on the Auburn Avenue side, it was B.B. Beeman's. And in the evening, you had a couple of other gathering spots. And all of them disappeared as Atlanta grew. And then we got a real gathering spot.
He's put a spin on the traditional social club experience by creating an exclusive think tank right here in Atlanta.
The Gathering Spot is one of the biggest, most diverse membership clubs.
It's come to be known as a central hub for Black entrepreneurs and creatives.
What's going on with the Gathering Spot? What's going on with all of the studios?
And nothing's stopping the co-founders of Atlanta's exclusive club, The Gathering Spot.
The Gathering Spot.
The Gathering Spot.
When I was between my first and my second year of law school, I had just finished 1L, which is supposed to be the hard year, right? And I'm at this law firm watching Trayvon Martin's case every single day. I mean, to the point where like the IT department came and knocked on the door and asked me, like, what are you watching in here? Because we can see that you're taking up a lot of bandwidth. And I, at the end of the summer, right, I got an email from some friends, two people that it's important for me to actually say their names, Brian Keston and Alex Bledsoe. I've been classmates of theirs in undergrad, and I sent them a note back that said, hey, look, I think that we should build a physical place, but more importantly, we should bring together our community to tackle this issue. And I felt at that moment that there was an opportunity to take it and do more. But that was the start. I sent the idea to TK the next day, and it was at that point. I mean, it was just a concept. I did feel like the place needed to exist.
When I first got the email from Ryan, you got to understand what my Gmail inbox looks like. I probably got more than 10,000 unread emails in there, and Ryan's email is fairly long. So I'm not about to respond to that email, because if someone sends you a long email, then you need to respond with one of, roughly the equal magnitude of length. And I wasn't trying to do that. So I just called him.
It wasn't really, strange for us to think that he wanted to do something on his own. However, this was after 2 years of law school, and Ryan always wanted to be an attorney. So for him to say he wanted to do something other than that was a little bit surprising, but we were very supportive of him from the very beginning.
When Ryan, came home or sent the email, text, or whatever, and said that, while he enjoyed and was getting a lot of benefit out of being in law school, that he wanted to use that differently. There wasn't any hesitation or anything on our part. It was more, what can we help you to do to execute on that?
The full picture was depicted to me on a plane. I don't remember where we were traveling, but he was telling us about this idea and what our thoughts were, and we were kind of just asking questions. Obviously, this was a little surprising because he was in law school, so we were like, wait, you're completely changing career paths here. But ultimately, we were excited for him. I think, we grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My dad's an entrepreneur, so having him do something and branch out from his original career path was not crazy in our family. So ultimately, we supported him, but it was obviously different than him being a lawyer.
Between my first year and my second year, I'm getting ready to kind of get through the rest of my law school experience. And we just started meeting. It became a consistent thing where we would meet every night trying to figure out the best way to make the idea a reality.
I didn't understand what they were talking about. So they were in the living room and they said something about, first they were thinking more towards like a co-working space, and then that wasn't fully what they, that wasn't the full vision of what they really wanted to accomplish. So like, I kind of understood it when they said co-working, and then when they started going off, I was like, I don't know what y'all are talking about anymore, but they were always in the living room, always talking about it, and hashing it out and making, I don't know, PowerPoint business plans and things like that. So I could tell that they were serious.
I want to say we meet probably at least once a week in person. But we talk about, we're in dialogue about it like every day, if not every day, every other day for sure. And the good thing about the personality overlap that Ryan and I have is that we're both really competitive, and it helps us, at least I should talk for myself, it helps me stay focused because like I can't let him outwork me. So if it's like, okay, I'm gonna do X, Y things by the time we talk again in 2 days, if he's gonna do 3 things, I need to do at least 3 things. Or I really try to do like 4 or 5 things so I could be up on him. So, you know, that's how we worked. And something Ryan says all the time is that, and which is true, was that with every meeting when we met again, the point was to have made a step so that we're not just spinning our wheels.
Those early days were about us trying to think about a concept, but then also think about a business model and figure out how to marry the two. But I mean, we met for years. I mean, it went on for all of my second year of law school, all of my third year of law school, and it wasn't until I graduated that TK quit his job and we had decided to move to Atlanta. I had to make the decision what to do between 2L and 3L, and I decided that I was going to decline my job offer. And that was strange, right? I mean, as a law student, it's kind of expected that you would work every summer, and at a law firm in particular, there's good money in those summer gigs. I mean, we're talking about 30, 40K for a couple weeks of work. And I declined my job offer between 2L and 3L. And we had made the decision that I was going to spend the entire summer just working on the business.
We had broke off and said like for this upcoming summer, like we'll work on these different things. So Ryan doesn't take his internship, his 2L year, and he's just working on TGS full time.
We also put some money in for the first time. I've been working as a research assistant and was making a little bit of money doing that.
Towards the end of that summer, I remember we go to Vegas. Actually, before we go to Vegas, we say like, all right, guys, you know, it's go time. Like everyone put in their bread. You know, we agree as a team like it's going to be this much money to start.
And so TK and I put in our first $5,000 into the business that summer. And you know, part of incorporating was going to go get a bank account, and we both sent in $5K. And a part of the story that a lot of folks don't know is that there were 2 other people that we had been kind of talking to about the business.
I'd already made the TGS bank account, the EIN. I did all that stuff earlier in the year, and it was like, all right, everyone put up your bread. And the other 2 cats was like, you know, at this point in time, I don't think this is the best, you know, situation for me, XYZ, and they dropped off. So then it's just me and Ryan.
We didn't know what it was going to be called, right? We used to call it The Spot, and that was just kind of a temporary name because we didn't know what the name of the business would be. We were doing a lot of research at that point too, and you would hear people say like these very elegant long names for country clubs and city clubs, and so like we didn't want the business to sound like that, but we didn't know what to call it. So we would just say The Spot, The Spot, The Spot should have this, The Spot should have that, and it was that summer though where we had to say something to people, and it needed to be like a real entity. And I don't remember actually how Gathering got introduced between The and Spot, but we made the decision pretty quickly and jumped in to really trying to make the business happen as The Gathering Spot from that point. One of the things that I did that summer is we reached out to a marketing firm to have them come up with like the initial logo, and they needed a name for the business too. And that first $5,000, when we combined it all of that money was going to actually pay for marketing stuff. We needed, you know, logo and kind of like brand identity things developed, and yeah, I mean that was where all the cash was going.
So division of responsibilities, roles, and duties. So for Ryan and I, it's actually pretty simple. I study finance and accounting. He's a lawyer, so there's legal, and then there's finance. So a lot of people even say that's like the best mix for starting businesses. You got the legal person, you got your finance person. So we split division of duties like that. But honestly, back in the day, that early, we did everything together. Like looked at every email together, came up with stuff together.
So they sent us a couple rounds of logos, and I remember not liking the first round. I remember looking at it and being like, yeah, this doesn't really feel like it. So we sent them all back, and they came back and sent another round in, and there was a need. I don't remember why, but there was a need to like pick something pretty quickly. I think it was for a deck that we were trying to build for fundraising. And the logo that we used today was a part of the package, and we played around with the blue a little bit for like a couple days, and then went with it. I mean, during those times, it was all moving really fast. I mean, we needed a name. We said, okay, Gathering Spot sounds like a fine name. We'll go with it for now. I had a very like for now sort of mindset with the name. It wasn't something that I felt like was actually going to be our name. It just, to me, was like good enough for the time being. And that was the same thing with the logo, honestly. Like it was, for me, good enough for us to get going. But if we thought of something better, I knew that we had time to change it. But as we kept building around the concept, the Gathering Spot felt more and more like home.
Like we signed the deal for Gensler and all that stuff, and we know we need to raise money, so we made a pitch deck and everything. And the truth is, the first version of the pitch deck was really like remixing the concept design deck that Gensler made based off of like what we told him architecturally. And Ryan's really good with presentations, and he'll tell you like he was the yearbook editor or whatever for his high school, and so he's familiar with like making presentations and software for that.
One thing that I always like make sure that I stay kind of rooted in is that folks thought we were absolutely ridiculous at this point. 2013, 2014, nobody was like feeling what TK and I were talking about. And so honestly, we weren't telling a lot of people.
I didn't think he was crazy. I just didn't know what to expect, like what the outcome was going to be. And then when I saw the space was so big, and it was just like I couldn't really picture like what people would be doing in this like giant space. So like the first time he took me in, it was still like had the university stuff all over it from whatever it was before. And I just, he was trying to say like this would be this and this would be this. Like obviously he could see it very clearly.
It wasn't until the fall of 2015, and by that point, Reagan was on board, Samantha we were talking to come on board, that we all changed our Instagram names. And this is like, I wasn't really even like big on Instagram at the time. We all changed our Instagram names to spot on our initials. And when we did that, we put up a graphic that was our logo. And I think we said coming fall 2015. And that was really the first time that we were saying like, public, hey, this thing is coming. But even then, we didn't describe what it was. It just said coming fall 2015 with our logo.
I didn't really know what I was getting into. Hearing Ryan and TK tell these stories now, had I known what I was getting into, I don't know if I would have felt differently about what I was doing. But they did a really good job of hiding everything. Not even hiding everything, but projecting confidence in what we were doing.
Ryan and I actually connected via LinkedIn, and it was before LinkedIn was a thing. So I remember getting the invitation from him, and I was like, this is really weird because I have no idea who this person is. Accepted it. Maybe 3 months after that, he sent me a note and told me that he was bringing TGS to ATL, or opening TGS rather, to Atlanta. He was still in DC at the time, but he'd been working on the concept with TK.
After that announcement, we knew that we had an issue, and it was the same issue that we were running into with investors. There was a chicken or an egg problem that was happening, where in the investor context, you needed investors in order to find a space, but you needed a space in order to attract investors. And it was not, the two things for a while were not coming together. On the other side, just to the general audience, like potential members of the club, we didn't have anything. We needed a space in order to be able to talk to members of the club as well. So my dad had the idea of doing an animated short. Like, he thought we should do like an animation that would explain what TGS was.
What if you could set aside only the best parts of where you spent your day? Then what if you put all those parts together in one modern and very cool space? And what if you fill that space with all kinds of professional, like-minded people who helped each other succeed? Now your day is looking different. Here, after your company event goes off without a hitch, you stroll down to the workspace where you write up a killer proposal with help from your new tribe. Then one of them joins you for a private lunch to close a deal on a sweet joint venture. Later, your important client meets you for drinks at the lounge. Then she asks if she can join you there again with her boss. Now that would be great. Heck, that would be brilliant. That would be the gathering spot. A new kind of professional and social space that combines the best of co-working, private clubs, and events into one brilliant home base of awesome.
We were trying to figure out, well, whose voice could really be a part of this this piece that we're putting together. And I mean, there's no bigger name and voice in Atlanta than Ryan Cameron. That was the first person in Atlanta that we super respected, that people knew, that had decided that they were going to affiliate themselves with this unknown company. There was nothing but our word and what we were just generally sharing about what we wanted to accomplish. And I will forever be grateful to Ryan because, yeah, he did the video, but more importantly than that, he believed in what we were doing. I bet if you go back even now and look at the hits on that video, that it's nothing, but it was huge for us when that video dropped. We thought that it was the coolest thing in the world. Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of people during that time that really didn't have to believe in TGS or give us any time, right? I mean, I remember in this very room, I stood in this room, it was not yet, there was no construction that had started yet, and another family friend, Morgana Freeman, said that she was going to send 2 people to come meet me. The first person was Bernard Parks, and the second person was Shaka Zulu.
I got a call from a friend, a college friend, Morgana Freeman, and she was like, hey, I have a friend that, needs support. There are some young guys, they have lofty goals, and they need to tap in with you because you're connected to the city. And me and one of my business partners, Bernard Parks, drove down here, met. We was like, where are we? I knew the area, but I was like, what's going on? So we're walking in, and it's literally nothing but construction everywhere. There's nothing but holes in the wall, nothing, I mean, there's wires everywhere, metal beams, and they're like, so this is the gathering spot. And we were like, okay, explain. So they start walking in. Well, this is where the desk is going to be. When you walk in, you're going to go over here, and over here we're going to have TVs, and then we're going to have a workspace over here, and then and they just went through this elaborate, detailed vision. And it was funny. That idea wasn't laughable. It was laughable. I was just like, okay, I got you. I get where you're going, and then they added in the element of culture and intentionality that they wanted to have with creating this space. And then that's where I started understanding, okay, they have a real vision. Even though I can't see it at this moment, they have a real vision.
So this is another look at the reception. This will be a place where members will be able to meet their friends and introduce them to the space. It'll lead us directly into the dining space, which is a really cool and trendy environment.
If I think back to 2014, 2015, 2016, 17, there were a lot of people that didn't have to do that. And thank God that they did, because had they not, I don't know if we would be having this conversation right now. I mean, we're in the community business, and to watch people that were already well established in the community say, all right, I'm gonna give these kids a shot, was exciting.
I'm back. I'm like a big old kid. I'm at the gathering spot. This is my new place to hang out. That's right, Will Pack is at the gathering spot.
To take a step back, so 2016, we don't have enough capital. And what I've learned over time is I've developed an expertise of finding bread, finding finance in one way or another.
It's still like hard to fully describe exactly how bad the situation was in those years. Like, it was very, very, very bad. We would read these stories about these startups that would raise all this money and then have time to go figure out their product and just kind of just burn down the cash. It's actually like term, like what's your burn rate? And that was just not our story. We were pitching and pitching and pitching, asking people to refer us to people, even after those people had told us no, just trying to get in front of anybody to invest. And it was not happening. I mean, folks were saying no, they weren't getting back to us. We were sitting in the lobbies. I've sat in the lobby, it feels like every hotel in Buckhead, just waiting on somebody to come and meet with us, or restaurants where we would sit and just try to like hope that somebody would come spend some time with us. And it just was not shaking. Like, folks were not doing anything, but we still knew that we had to press on. And again, like, there's this thing going on where the more, this our thought was, the more that we could produce, the more likely a person would be willing to invest. And so we're gonna push this thing absolutely as far as we can, because if we can get just one step further, that might be the thing that triggers a person to say that they'll jump in.
It's hard to articulate what it's like to be that young, and not forget being young, but to just have the responsibility of taking care of people. And Ryan is not a numbers dude, but like, he understands the pressure, but I'm living with it and knowing that, like, by the end of this week, we're supposed to spend $50,000, and right now we have $15,000 in the bank. And I am not exactly sure how I'm going to make this work, but I have to. And like, any bill that came in almost felt like a personal attack, like, Jesus.
I would give this to TK for forever. I mean, we were negotiating deals with the longest possible terms on them, trying to just believe that we would catch up whenever the due date was. But these were big bills, y'all. I mean, these were really, really big bills. I mean, nearly all of our contracts were six figures. I can't think of anything that was smaller than that. And I'm talking about, like, not 100,000, like 3, 4, 5, sometimes millions.
I wouldn't even imagine like the things that are playing on in the back of their heads all the time, because in addition to their legacy, they have, you know, over 100 people whose livelihoods depend on theirs in terms of staff. And then if you expand that to membership, that's thousands of people. And not that I don't think it's an ego thing, but I think it's also a responsibility about the mission that they have about this business.
What people don't really understand about them is like how much they really care. To be, you know, young 20-something, you know, co-founders of a burgeoning business, you're responsible for so many people's lives. Like, you know, yes, they entrusted us with building the business, but we also entrusted them with, you know, some level of security, right? And quality of life. And I distinctly remember our first Thanksgiving together. Ryan didn't really share this story real time. We talked about it a little bit later, but like, we damn near didn't make payroll, right? And like, there was a couple things that needed to happen financially, like payments from, you know, from events and certain memberships, that he literally went and sacrificed, you know, his own credit and his, you know, like own finances just to make sure that payroll is paid. No matter what, we cannot miss payroll.
You know, a lot of the work then was the architectural design and trying to figure out how we're gonna, you know, secure the capital for construction. We got to find a GC and we got to figure out how we're gonna structure the financing for the construction. Because before we moved down here, we pretty much had a deal in principle for a space in a space in, so we didn't get that. But we had like a $2 million deal that they were going to finance the build out. You know, that's how real estate deals work. You sign a big lease, and then a portion of the build out expense the landlord finances for you. So along with the verbal that we had before, plus some other investors, that was going to be enough to get TGS started. But that deal dies, and then we have to find this new space. So we end up at North Yards, but the deal isn't this. The deal dynamics aren't the same. There's no financing coming from the landlord. So we need to go raise, $3 million at least now. And we're already living in Atlanta, and we signed a lease for the space before we found an investor. So like, there's like you have a time pressure. It's like the lease is about to start in the fall. We have not raised the money necessary, and we got to figure this out. So it's you running at the goal.
The more that we could produce, the more likely a person would be willing to invest. And so we're going to push this thing absolutely as far as we can, because if we can get just one step further, that might be the thing that triggers a person to say that they'll jump in. So like, if we could just get a building, or if we can show some designs, or if we can show some color designs, or if we can have a couple people on our team, or like, it was always for us just like, let's just be further along than we were for the last person, and that will make the business viable. But for years, there was nothing happening.
Ryan would tell the stories of 97 no's before we got our first yes. And I'd say part of what allowed us, or at least allowed me to be in the mode of just going, is that you just didn't know any better. You didn't know how many times you were supposed to hear no before you gave up, or how hard or how easy it was supposed to be. The one thing I say from Ryan and his dad that really rubbed off on me is like they just believe it's going to work out.
Views, TGS coming soon.
It's lit.
Grand opening is, we've been promised for a really long time that the construction was going to be finished here. I mean, we thought it was going to be finished in November, then we thought it was going to be finished in January, and we really had a stake in the ground that like, going into to January, that like it needed to be done. And we had this party scheduled. It was the last day of the month, and we had invited as many people at that point that we knew, and the guest list got up to like 500 people. And our friends were flying in, we had family flying in, and about a week out, we were still being told that this thing was going to be finished. And like, we didn't have construction experience, but they were like, look, it comes together really quickly. We're farther than it looks like right now. It'll get there. And I remember being back in this room, and I was standing right over on the other side, and I looked at the foreman on the job, and I said, like, please level with me. Like, please level with me. Are we going to finish this job on time? We have so many people coming. Are we going to finish? He says, yes, we will get this done. And I was like, I really need you to just like tell me the truth. If we're not gonna make it, please tell me that right now. He was like, we'll make it. 5 days out, it's very rough. Back in this same room, it's like a full carpentry stop, like 5 days before. They're building all types of stuff in here. Like, I mean, it was wild. 24 hours before, I come in to the club late, and I don't know why I came in. It was like probably like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And I walk in, this is the day before our event, and there's trash. I mean, it was a construction site. I mean, like there was nothing about the site that was ready at all for go time. And I didn't know what else to do, so I just was by myself and started just trying to clean, right? And then I too what all kids do, I called my mom.
I can't remember where we were, and we actually came from the airport straight to the gathering spot and think, okay, this is going to be ready for tomorrow. And we got there, and it was like, this is like, what's going on here? So I mean, we were definitely concerned, but through the work that got done that night, the cleaning that got done that night, the gala was fine the next day. So sometimes things don't always look like what they seem, because it all worked out in the end. But when we first saw it, it was definitely a lot of concern about it.
I believe at that point TK was already here and we were cleaning up, and my mom at one point was like, look, there's so much trash in here right now, I have no idea, like y'all are not gonna be able to get this up by yourself. There's just no way. And my dad's in the corner trying to call the construction company and very upset. And we came up with a plan that night to try to figure out if we could just get like several cleaning crews over here in the morning to help us clean out the trash and to give us a shot at being able to have the event.
It looked crazy in here. It looked insane in here. It didn't have no doors. They didn't really have no running water. I don't even think it had running water for real.
No heat, no real plumbing, no real functional bathrooms. The workspace still had a ton of things to do. If you look at pictures, like stuff like the signature light that's in this room, it wasn't in here. There was no even door on this room. I mean, things like the bar top weren't even on until like minutes before this party started. But we made it look like something for that evening. Behind the scenes, it was ugly.
It was all types of issues with where the building was at, but we made it look show ready by the time. We hired like 4 cleaning crews, and you know, we made the impossible shake, and that's one of the key moments, I believe, in the history of TGS, because it was one of those things that was like, yo, we have to figure out how to make this show well, and we did. And you know, always rising to that occasion, I think is a part of the TGS character, where it's like we're gonna make it happen.
Early on in our journey, we thought that, like, look, you're gonna have to figure out ways to demonstrate seriousness and being a legitimate business, and can't let our financial situation get in the way of that, right? And one of the goals that we always had for TGS was to make sure that we were honoring people in the community for really just being themselves.
I remember when they did the dinner for me, honoring me, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, you want to honor me? The fact that, again, they wanted to recognize and honor me, it meant so much to me.
I know folks on our team had to be looking at us like we were crazy, because, you know, who invites 20 people to dinner and doesn't charge them anything? But we did. Financially, a lot of things that we were doing at that time didn't make any sense. We were broke, but refused to act like it, or refused to make decisions because of it, right? It was like, that's a fact. We are financially not in a good place, but okay, like you've got to still figure out ways to move forward. When did it start clicking? That's a tough question for me. It might be the toughest question all night. I don't know. I don't know if it's clicking right now. Like we're such in a mode of trying to get better every day that I definitely didn't have a moment where I was like, this is finally better. You started to see some trends through 2018, and this is, you know, now talking about going into year 3 and year 4, 2019, that we were starting to accumulate enough significant wins that you couldn't ignore that things were moving in the right direction. But I have never woken up and said, we did it.
I mean, the work and the intensity we had with the work that we were doing, like it's indescribable, right? And like, I'm not afraid of working hard. I've done it my whole career, but the level of sacrifice required to like operate this company and be thoughtful about every single part of it, like, is unlike anything I've ever experienced.
But 2018 was a better year, right? It was the first time that, again, there had been an accumulation of things that had happened here, and enough recognition that the community here was really something special, that we weren't having to defend TGS from a conceptual standpoint anymore. There were enough things that had happened by that point that folks knew that we were at least semi-legit.
I just remember, you know, like our team just all trying to figure it out, you know. As we were celebrating the 5-year anniversary, you gotta think 5 years ago, the gathering spot didn't exist in the minds of people. It was a physical space, but no one really knew what it was. It wasn't a brand, it wasn't a company that anyone knew, and now you have everyone from Drake to, you know, President Biden and VP Harris and Common and all kind of people. Like, you can't really think about culture without thinking about the gathering spot now, especially in Atlanta and even outside of it.
I've hosted so many events and moderated so many events here that, man, they're limitless. I had a one-on-one with Ed Gordon, who's one of my favorite journalists. We had interviews with Killer Mike. I mean, you name it, I've been a part of it. And I'm so glad because I came on board as, hey, we'd love to partner with you to serve as our moderator from time to time. And that was just great. I felt so humbled that they would even think of me in that regard.
I have probably 100 memories here. This is my place to get away from City Hall. So I've done interviews for staff here. I've hosted the Hillary Clinton watch party, having Ed Holder here. I've seen Common here, and just so many events after events, and people just enjoying themselves, but learning and educating themselves. I remember, I think one of the best events I've had here was when I had the young men talk about their experiences with getting involved in gangs and crime. To go from, you know, Eric Holder, Hillary Clinton, all the way to young men in South Atlanta that have come in contact with the criminal justice system and how they're changing their lives. Right here at the gathering spot, I've experienced all that.
I was here for the Drake parties, you know, the private clothes thing. I've done, like I said, my daughter's Sweet 16. I did a rites of passage here. Here for the Kamala conversation, Biden. We've had private, you know what I'm saying? So it's just the space, you know what I mean? They've kept it open, late night on some dinner. I have NBA players in town who don't want to go to clubs, they just want to have their own space, so we come play spades and they'll keep the kitchen open. We've done a number of things here that has been accommodating to the culture and the community of Atlanta that I think is just dope.
I had just come on board as Chief Marketing Officer, and we were talking about innovation, what we could do, you know, to bring ideas and creativity and different agencies together. And so the idea of an agency shootout came about. And so internally, we wanted to find a place that was different, that wasn't the arena, that wasn't our offices, where we could have different agencies come together and pitch ideas for our business or for fan engagement. And, you know, after coming here, I was like, this is the perfect place. And it was so new and different, and it's the energy and the vibe. And so I was so grateful, you know, when Ryan, TK, and the team decided that they would allow us the opportunity to come in, and we brought in Grant Hill and some of our owners as judges, and it was a phenomenal event for us.
I remember moderating a panel for Spotify here that was incredible with Troy Carter. I mean, it's too many moments to name. Again, it's just an honor, and I feel like I'm a part of that blanket and that fabric of the gathering spot, and I hope that we continue to warm the community.
I distinctly remember when we hosted Drake for the first time.
The first time he was here, I was standing in the kitchen and he walked through because that's how he was getting to the bathroom, and we made eye contact, and I literally immediately looked away because I was like, oh my God, I can't look at him.
And he loves his spritzers. I'm even like that. Drake loves spritzers.
I think it's pretty cool to see, like, you know, tell your friends, like, yeah, you know, like I went to like a private party and Drake was DJing.
If you were a member in the workspace, you really won that night because it was definitely a private function, but we went to the back and we kind of saw, because it was 1 o'clock it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and we were like, man, who's back here working right now?
That was an event that literally started like 1, 2 a.m., went until like 6:37, but like, you gotta imagine, like, it's his event, but like, the club wasn't closed the next day, so we literally had to like wrap that event, clean up the space, air it out, and be ready for like 9 a.m. when members were coming in.
I never get invited when the celebrities come through. I'm a human too. I'm a regular Joe. You don't have to put me in some political box just because I'm an elected official. When the cool kids come, call me at 1 in the morning. I will get out of my bed, drive down here, and hang out and enjoy myself.
So yeah, Drake's been here quite a few times, and now it's just the norm for us.
When you started to see like some of the biggest artists in the world, like Drake, start to do not just one experience, but like multiple experiences here, I knew that we were doing something. But you can't ever feel like you're there, because again, I think that's when you stop being there fast. But when people would come back to us, I knew that was confirmation that like, okay, this product is good.
There were so many nights, especially early on, because we didn't have the full team. We were moving chairs for events and like getting bars set up. Like we were actually doing that stuff ourselves, right? Like there wasn't an events team, it was literally us. There was no, cleanup crew, it was like operations team. It was just us.
There's so many people on our team now who bring so much skill and perspective, and it just makes me proud that our team is able to be bigger now, and makes me feel so much more excited about the possibilities. I feel like every TGS event, the big ones, there's always a moment of what we call is all hands on deck.
All hands on deck.
All hands on deck.
All hands on deck
situation at all times.
You could have a ton of work to do, like just so many things, like getting through marketing plans and proposals and getting ready for events, and like none of that mattered, because when Ryan sent the text like, yo, meet me in rail, yo, let's go iron, like terminal, all hands on deck, meaning like everybody had to drop everything you were doing, who you were talking to, it didn't matter, because we needed to have a meeting.
We didn't just like learn this pivoting just based off the pandemic. Like since I've been at TGS, I've noticed our ability to pick up on things, make things happen, like change. If it's flipping the club because we have a private event in 30 minutes with an all hands on deck, all the team has to be a part of this. If it's just going from church with Victory to a dinner that evening, like our team has been it's amazing to see how fast we're able to pivot, and I think that's what people love about us so much, because we are able to pretty much do anything.
Favorite memory of TGS, specifically an event, was Ryan's birthday party when we did orchestra in the courtyard. And I remember it was kind of like an all hands on deck. We got here early and we were setting up in the courtyard, and it starts drizzling, and we were like, oh my God, like we had set the tables out, so we like went and grabbed trash bags to like cover things up so that stuff wouldn't get wet.
We're sprinting out in the rain, we're all grabbing things, we're pulling linen, pulling flowers. We finally get inside and we look at each other, we look outside and the rain stops. We're like, beautiful.
That was probably my most memorable experience, because that was the first time that I was able to like really kind of dive in, and it was all hands. Like everybody was just like running around doing everything.
But that's the team. We jump in, doesn't matter what you were doing, what you look like, you are jumping in, all hands on deck, we're gonna make this happen. And that's the culture of the team. And I hope as we grow, that never changes.
The gathering spot, for me, it feels like family. Very, very collaborative. We work very well together. We execute things quickly. I think why a lot of folks love being on our team is that, our ideas are implemented. Like we can come to the table with an idea and Ryan is like, okay, cool, let's run with it.
It's just, this is home. Like I could be here 48 hours, just like it's nothing. It's just home.
Ryan and TK, I feel like this is often the case with like people that are close friends, and if you look at them, I mean, they're business partners, so it's an even deeper relationship than I don't know if they consider themselves best friends, but it's an even deeper relationship than friendship. But they like balance each other out so well. Ryan is the person that has the big, grandiose ideas, and I think sometimes you look at him like, okay, you're a little crazy, but if you think we can do it, then I'm fueled by that as well.
Personalities of the co-CEOs are very uniquely different, but they work and they balance. And I met Ryan first, and then I met TK, and in supporting them constantly, I just got an understanding of them both.
TK was always kind of behind the scenes, and I remember just seeing Ryan more, and I was like, oh, TK, because I always heard about Ryan and TK, because you really can't say one without the other. And so once I got to know TK and his bubbly spirit, I was like, this is definitely feels like home.
They're different, but they're the same. They have uniform goals, uniform ideas, and they're just about getting it done. So you would say, some people would say that Ryan is a little bit more laid back, introverted, you know what I'm saying, things like that, and that TK might be a little bit more outward in energy. You know, he has his cultural understanding, appreciation, you know, being from the Caribbean, and you might understand that dynamic, but I've seen them reverse it.
In my mind, to relate them to like one being a mom and one being the dad. And I know in my household, if I wanted something, and especially when it's like financially, if I asked my mom, I knew she was gonna say yes. If I asked my dad, which is like TK in this situation, you know, he's like looking at every single dollar, every single cent, and you're thinking, okay, what's the difference between like $1.99 and $2? But it matters.
It really blows people's minds when they speak with me, because they're like, oh, you never talk. And it's like, oh yeah, like Ryan and I talk all the time. When you hear Ryan saying something, it's like we came up with it together a lot of times. It's, so to answer the question you had, like Ryan and I's relationship, like it's to quite simply, it's a true brotherhood.
A plea from county and city leaders to cancel gatherings to stop the spread of COVID-19.
The CDC tonight recommending all events with 50 or more people be canceled for the next 8 weeks.
New CDC guidelines that now are limiting gatherings to less than 10 people. We made the decision yesterday to close completely, so there isn't anyone here at the club, but we are focusing all of our efforts right now to produce all of the content that we hope will kind of help the community weather the storm over the next couple of days. So when COVID hits, it was a brief moment of being like, wow, this actually, like, this is going to be scary for us. We're about to enter a time period where folks will not be able to access the club. But then all of the work that we've been talking about and frankly doing over the last several years, it started to really pay dividends.
2020, when the club shut down, we were going completely online, everything virtual. I definitely felt the pressure, but in a good way. You know, I knew that like, okay, everything's going digital, so who are they gonna look to? It's gonna be a lot of marketing that has to go out just to keep our members like informed.
We were at an inflection point. It's like, what are we going to do? And we actually sat right in the entryway at TGS, and we like talked through different scenarios. And it was like, yo, we can't stop charging dues because, you know, then we'd have to lay everyone off. There'd be no way to, you know, continue to pay anyone on the team if the dues stop coming in. But we have to acknowledge the fact that for a lot of people, they're also impacted. You know, how do we make it make sense?
Then going through the weekend, and I remember Sunday night, we were crafting an email to send out to the membership about how we were gonna pivot and stay safe in this, you know, in everything that was going on. I even noticed the number of members that would come to the club kind of dwindled over that week. And so I will say there was probably like a few dozen members in the club on Friday, and we drafted this communication, and that was like, you can bring your kids, it's gonna be safe, it's gonna be spaced out. We had created a new menu for children because we didn't know how serious this virus was, because we're, you know, responding to the news that we're getting from, you know, CDC and the media and all of that. We went from that probably went out at like 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. Right after that, Ryan was like, we're gonna close the club.
A lot of the staff, we were still on site very, very briefly and working very, very hectically to, you know, we put out TGS links. I remember creating the logo that day. I remember us talking about Power of the 30 Challenge that we soon put that out as well. And then it was like the next day, okay, we got this person lined up, they're shooting at this time, media team over here, you know, just back to back to back.
Not even 24 hours later, we completely pivoted, changed some of the experiences that were on our calendar that were in person to virtual. I remember Ryan and TK calling in every single person they knew.
let's use a portion of the membership dues that we bring in to, fund saving people, really self-finance, which really goes back to just, reading and knowing community building. And the way I've always looked at TGS is that we're a community where what it's doing is it's aggregating our resource. And through the virtue of your dues, you are building and infusing resource into what is, I hope to be the newest and latest Black institution in this country.
The little glimmer of hope I had was that, okay, the Gathering Spot has been through some tough times before. We have, I guess, the fortitude and like the strength to get through something else, which we thought was gonna be 2 weeks, and here we are a year later.
Think about that, a year ago, we're closed this time last year. And for folks to say, look, even when I can't come up here, the community means enough and I'm gonna stick with it.
We made a decision really early on in this thing that TGS could not stand for something that was like perceived as neutral. If we were going to be here, we had to be here, right? And we had to say what we cared about and talk about the people that we were backing directly. And that's been our mode like since day one.
The Gathering Spot is political, and it has, neutrality was never an option because that's not Ryan Wilson. Ryan has a perspective and an agenda when it comes to the liberation of our people and the enrichment of our community.
How are you going to lead differently as the President of the United States, specifically for Black Americans?
Because I love people. You and I've been to your place twice for extended periods of time.
Hi, Ryan Wilson. This is Reverend Raphael Warnock. I am calling you at the suggestion of Stacey Abrams. You may have heard I'm running for the United States Senate.
We have hosted more things here with Leader Abrams than I can count at this point, but have been with her from really the beginning of her campaign all the way to now, where she's leading some pretty significant efforts around access to voting and working on the census as well.
I was here with a young lady about 3 years ago, and she's the vice president now.
When moments like that were happening, I knew, okay, TGS is important culturally, and when you started to see like the now president of the United States stop here and some of the biggest artists in the world, I knew that we were doing something that it was trending right.
You never know what's going to happen when you gather great minds and free spirits in a gathering spot.
That gathering is just historically important. You know, we've been taught that, right? We've been taught that out of gatherings come great things. Whether it's, new governments, whether it's, business ideas and corporations, or revolution, right? So we have to understand that gathering is intricately and dynamically important to progress and moving forward. And so to just be called that, the gathering spot, whether it's, has its biblical implications where you would gather by the river, or you gather at a church, or you gather, like the spirit of that it's a call to gather. It's like, it's not about like, oh, just come here and hang. Gather, be specific, be intentional about being together. Come here, like, you know what I'm saying? It's like send us your poor, send us your weak. You know what I'm saying? Like, it all has that in the DNA. So I think that's an amazing concept psychologically for people to know that they have a place that they can go.
The sky's the limit for the gathering spot in my mind. I mean, if you just reflect on where the gathering spot is right now, 5 years in, you have the first one here in Atlanta really thriving, and even before you can open in DC, you got 1,000 members before doors even open. and then going to LA, I just think it's a good fit everywhere in the country. And it represents that there have been, folks that are in our communities that have not had the opportunity to participate in the special community aspect of a private membership club.
Speaking of branching out, I hear that there's been a lot of, expanding, going into different areas of the U.S. as far as like DC, we have LA. I know I even heard there's additional places that we've been looking at too.
I want to see the gathering spot go global. I mean, there's so much opportunity, and the work that we're doing here can be replicated, across the nation. And so I love to see the growth and expansion that's currently happening, but I also think there are a ton of other ways that this brand can come to life that still continues to support people of color and just entrepreneurs and innovators in new and unique ways. And so I love what I'm already seeing, and I think the sky's the limit.
There's about the vision of where they want the gathering spot to go. It's not just Atlanta, but now DC is open, and I'm hearing of other locations that are, on their way. It's so inspiring. It's so motivational. Why wouldn't you want to support something like this?
I believe every city needs a gathering spot. And as I say, a place where people meet and ideas give birth to business and relationships and prosperity and creativity.
Just continue to expose everybody to it. There's a lot of talk today about, equity and racial equity and all that. And I think appropriately so, because, the reality is that there have been things over time that haven't been the best for people of color. And now there's an opportunity for that. But it's also time for us to raise up and take advantage of the opportunity that's out there. And I think that that's what's happening here right now. I think Ryan and TK are very, very focused and understand that.
Let's see what happens when we get 10 cities working together, and where somebody with a flourishing business here in Atlanta meets someone from another city, and they meet in another gathering spot, and they make things happen there. I think it's a brilliant idea, and I think it's managed well, it's functioning well. I always feel good when I come here. And I look around at all of you beautiful young people, and I realize the future's in good hands.